roster. So they still got a lot of talent in the running back room. It's just a matter of just kind of competing, getting better every day. Um, People have been asking me about predictions. You're gonna get predictions? Not just yet, but I will predict this. You just got to win the week, get better every day, go 1-0. You can't look too far ahead. And for this Southern University football team, like others, it's just pressure to win. This climate now, you have to win, and you have to win now. So we always talk about it, Charles. Who can overcome adversity? If you don't have any adversity during the season, that's fine. But in most cases, you're going to have it. Injuries. You got to just get better every day.
Yep. Football is a grimy, ugly, physical sport, and you are going to have players go down. And so, to your point, that's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. And when that happens, you're one play away. Your number must be called, and you must come through. You talked about your quarterback situation down there at Southern. For the first time, we got a chance to look at Tyler Macon, the Missouri transfer, looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively struggled early in the scrimmage. A couple of picks early by our defense, which looks really good. I talked with our DC, Cedric Thomas. He is just so elated with his defense. Complete transformation from 12 months ago. Because remember, he came on board late, but the defense has got a lot of youth. It's got some experience and a lot of mid-year transfers from the high school level, Carlos. Now, you talk about freshmen at the college level coming in from
Mm-hmm.
high school. We have a number of players that graduated from high school in December, came on campus in January, and they kind of got ahead of a lot of folks. So he's excited about that. Jarvion Howard, 1 yard run in the scrimmage today. So our defense got 2 early picks. Our offense got humming a little bit. And so I think that's going to be fine. I think we got to continue to work on special teams. Our offensive line's got a little bit of work to do, but this is just the first scrimmage. You're going to have another one next week. And I think that's going to be the key because then the following scrimmage is going to kind of be a mop-up thing. Once you get into, to me, and this is just the way Fred McNair, I think, works this, once school starts, and that's going to be in another 10 days or so, then you're
Mm-hmm.
going to kind of round out the roster a little bit. And I think you can make that case for a lot of schools in our league. Once school starts, things kind of contract, and you kind of know what you got. Right now, everybody's playing, everybody's, giving it their all because school has not started. But once you get into that, I think you're going to see, you're going to separate the wheat from the shaft in many cases. So this is the first scrimmage for a lot of schools. I was listening to the radio, New Orleans, Carlos. Southern's Fan Fest, I believe, is next week, 9
Mm-hmm.
a.m. 9 a.m. You
August the
get
19th.
yeah,
Yeah.
9 a.m. and trying to beat the heat. Obviously, they go to the mini dome and they'll be signing autographs, and that's smart because this heat is not going to let up anytime soon. And so you got to work through that. You hate to hear that with Albany State, and I did read that. You just have to be careful. I mean, football is football. You got to work through it. It would be nice if we all had indoor practice facilities to kind of beat that, but we don't have that. So you got to kind of do the best you can with it. But this is the first scrimmage for a lot of teams, and I think some questions will be asked. A few questions will be answered. A lot won't here through the first couple of weeks of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I have to. I learned a long time ago to temper your expectations because you're playing against each other in a scrimmage, correct? You know each other, um, so it's not as great as it may seem, but then it's not as bad as it may seem. So you kind of put it in perspective. Most teams going through that first scrimmage, but I just like to see the improvement daily in practice, and you want to make that improvement. And so when school starts, and then when you get into game week, you evaluate everything that's going on. But and then two teams get tired of hitting against each other when the pads come on the first time in full pads. They want to hit somebody else. So I just learned to temper my expectations. It's kind of like the spring game. It's basic, it's vanilla. They're not going to show everything. And with these first scrimmages, you just want to see who has improved, who has retained what they've been going through in practice, and now showcase it. You know, a lot of times they have officials there to kind of simulate game condition. So by the time you get to that second scrimmage, and then the week of, it will tell a story. Another big thing for Southern University: who's going to replace Corin Harris and Glenn Brown? Corin Harris, of course, transferred in from McNeese, uh, all SWAC safety, and then Glenn Brown transferred to University of Louisiana Lafayette. But you got Dimitri Marcel, Division II All-American from Bowie State. He transferred last year with Carter, but you know, with transferring, wasn't really eligible to play. Now, this is a guy that you got to watch if you're, Southernite or Southern alums, because this kid was an All-American, and he's moved right into the safety position. Glenn Brown's position, Tyler Judson is a safety who transferred in last year, a local product, Zachary High School, Tulane University. They're looking for big things. And then, of course, in the secondary, you got your returning corners, Rodney Johnson and Christian Davis, who we interviewed on this show in the secondary. Then defensive line. Who did you lose? Jason Dumars, Trey Lane, and Cameron Peterson. But now Taj Brown, and by the way, dropped 15 pounds. You go, Taj. Now can move around much better. Not that he couldn't move around before, but it has helped him in his game. Of course, Kelby Gibbons, interviewed on this show a few weeks ago at defensive end, and then Davin Cotton, circle that name, two years ago, transferred in from LSU. Last year, knee injury, now is back and has been getting a lot of reps in fall camp. So the defense line, and then Rasheed Lyles, who we interviewed on this show, Louisiana Tech, moving outside certain packages. Coach Miller has moving him in on third down passing situations. Man, I'm trying to keep up, Charles. They inside. Now they moved outside. Jelani Davis, who we interviewed on this show, moved to the outside. They have different packages. Then also a name to remember, Darius Harry, defensive end from Southeastern that transferred in. Played a lot for Southeastern last year. A pass rush specialist. So Coach Miller has a lot of things he can work on, and he's doing it. Coach Miller, of course, came over with Coach Dooley on as a defensive coordinator. So you're kind of excited, Charles. You want to say, yeah, good morning to everyone in the chat room, by the way. Appreciate you watching, tuning in. Less than a month now. What, 3 weeks? 3 weeks in some cases.
Yeah.
Jackson State got a quarterback battle. Was looking that up. Jason Brown, Jacobian Morgan, Zion McDonald, who transferred in from, I believe, Louisiana Tech. I always say UL, but they've had their fall campus started. They're scrimmaging. I really believe Jason Brown will probably win it. Just my prediction at Jackson State. So you're seeing all of these battles. You said something interesting a couple of weeks ago with all of the teams breaking their quarterbacks. You feel like that there'll be some lower scoring games, and then how much impact using in this time in fall camp. The defense is what ahead of the offense. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when you get into conference play. But I'm also intrigued and interested in seeing how well the teams in the conference do well in their out of conference games.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on the number of teams breaking in new quarterbacks, and we can go up and down the list, we've talked about it for the last several weeks. I think it's safe to say that defensively, if you're stout defensively, if you ended the season defensively strong, like Alcorn, like Southern, I think that's going to have to carry you a little bit until your offense gets going. Because let's be honest.
And Jackson State, Charles.
Jackson State,
let's not forget about them. Very good defensively.
Absolutely, yeah. Jackson State was really good defensively last year, but they're going to have no new quarterback, obviously. So defensively, if Jackson is as stout, as Southern is as stout as they were at the end of last year, and of course we were, and Cedric Thomas is really excited about his defense. He says he really has to do very little coaching. He lets his assistants kind of handle things. He just kind of sits on his perch. He looks as relaxed as I've ever seen him. This is his second tour of duty at Alcorn as defensive coordinator. He's got some young guys, under him that can get it done. But I do think that until the continuity comes together at the quarterback position, which I do think is going to take time, I think everybody needs to relax because it's not going to be easy. We open up with USM. I really like, I really want to commend Roman Banks, the AD, for scheduling Bama State in a game that doesn't count in the standings, but to play that game. Of course, Jackson State, that was on the schedule, supposed to be in Birmingham, but it's going to be, it's going to be played. You have those games to kind of help you with the continuity against competition that you can compete with. It's going to be tough for us, obviously. USM, Stephen F., McNeese. I think we can get McNeese if we can get it going early. So I do think defensively and special teams, if we can make some things happen till our offense gets going throughout our league, I think it'll be a lot more competitive. But I do think it's going to be some starts and stops from the offensive side of things. The one thing about Tyler Macon, Carlos, I'll just say this. I saw him for the first time in live action today. He gets the ball out quickly. He's a dual threat quarterback, but he does not hold on to the football. He slings it. Aaron Allen's more of a pocket passer, the transfer from Louisiana Tech. We knew coming in that he has the big arm, but he's not quick of foot like Tyler Macon. So that's something that I saw today. We also have a freshman, Rod Hartsfield, that got some action today in the scrimmage. So there's going to be some quarterback battles, obviously, at Alcorn. Aaron Allen told me this morning, hey, I'm battling for the number one. I think he understands where he is in the pecking order right now. He hurt his shoulder, as we all know, in the Grambling game, elected not to have surgery. Talked to him about that this morning. He chose to rehab it, and he looked good in scrimmage today. So he's going to be battling for that number one. And as you talked about, as we know, that's what you like to see on the offensive side of the ball. But I think defensively, we got all the pieces. We got the youth, a lot of experience from last year, the way we ended last year defensively. I think Cedric Thomas's defense is really going to be strong. And I do think throughout the course of the league, Texas Southern, with their new defensive coordinator, new scheme, coming over from Grambling, their DC. I think Texas Southern's going to be good defensively. We're going to be good, I think, defensively. Southern's going to be good. Jackson's going to be good. So I do think defensively, you're going to see some turnovers created, and I think you're going to see some defenses really standing tall early on.
Yeah, you're not really. You don't hear a lot of things about Prairie View, and I was kind of looking at some other sites with predictions and stuff, and a couple of them had Prairie View coming in at number 2 in the West, so they're just quietly sitting there, and they don't get a lot of the conversation, but they're going to be ready, and I think everybody wants to compete. So once we get through all these fall camps and talk about all the good things that are going on, then it's going to be game time. And we're going to find out quickly. Again, a lot of people look great. Then you put the pads on. Then you can tell another different type of story. You're going up against your teammates. You know each other. You know the little things that you can do, the strengths and the weaknesses. But then when you get into live ammunition against opposing teams, we will see very quickly how things are going. But as we talked about it, most teams are breaking in new quarterbacks, except for Texas Southern and FAMU. But I think you have a lot of strong defensive teams in this conference. Again, one of the benchmarks I want to see how well those teams that are playing out of conference. I'm not talking about NAIA schools, Division II schools, albeit FAMU has a tough one. When you look at going against the other FCS teams, that's kind of a measuring stick. I always talk about when Coach Richardson was at Southern University, and they would play Northwestern State, who traditionally you didn't do well against those teams. Southern came out and won, 4 of the first 5 games in the series, it set the tone for the rest of the season, SWAC included. But it sets the tone, and that's where, as a conference, we've got to get to. Coach Dooley at Prairie View, they did play up, a lot of FCS out of conference teams in out of conference. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I want to see. In the chat room, do you agree with me or disagree with me? It's fine if you disagree. I know some are just only interested in conference wins, playing other HBCUs out of conference in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Also, I want to see in the chat room, what do you think as far as record-wise? Your individual teams. What is acceptable to you? Someone asked me, what happens if Southern's 6-5 in the 2023? Look at my face. That would be bad. Technically, it's a winning season. Nope. They threw another scenario out at me. 7-4, but no visit to the SWAC championship. Nope. Not a good season for me as well. There you go, Johnny. I want to win regardless. There you go.
Well, yeah, and look, you brought up a good point in terms of what records could be, should be, and you talked about pressure. There is pressure for sure. You got TC Taylor taking the baton, Fred McNair, and you kind of chided at me last week about this. I there's just different dynamics going on at Alcorn State University right now. And the last 2 seasons have left a bad taste in a lot of folks' mouth, despite. And so this is the year that we've got to get back on the horse. Got some quality home games, Grambling for homecoming, Southern coming in. So the fans are looking for a lot better. As good as Southern was, made it to the championship game, left a bad taste leaving out of Jackson. I'm sure they're looking to get to Atlanta. You want to get to Atlanta. We want to get back to Atlanta. I was talking to Grambling Knight the other day. What do you think about Hugh Jackson? Look good at media day, but we'll see what Grambling is going to look like with their defense with Cedric Thornton, former Brave DC over there at Grambling. Calvez, the quarterback. We'll see if Hugh Jackson, who's an offensive guru, can get that offense going. I think he's found his quarterback, but last year they just turned it over, made too many mistakes, just self-inflicted mistakes offensively, especially in that Bayou Classic that hurt them. I think the expectation is high for Texas Southern. Andrew Body, this is his 3rd year. You don't see many 3-year starters in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, the quarterback position. I can think of John Gibbs. I can think of Quio Glass. You can, name a handful. But McKinney and Body are tied to the hip. Got a new president coming in. High expectations there. At Prairie View, they just can't finish the deal. They look good until the end. They lost to Alcorn last year in overtime, lost to Valley, cost them the championship, the Western Division. Coach McDowell says, we just got to finish the deal. They have been able to do it. So trust me, there's a lot of coaches that are a little bit have some anxiety because they've got to get over that hump. And we'll see if that happens. New coaches at Bethune, Valley, Arkansas Pine Bluff, they're coming. And we go to Pine Bluff for homecoming. So many storylines, so many things to watch out for. And yes, I think fans like these type of schedules early. I think you playing USM in state is not the same USM team. We got to come ready to play. Playing Stephen F., an FCS opponent. I think a lot of people probably would not like to see that. But having McNeese at home, returning a game, I think people would like to see that. But this playing up, I think a lot of our fans don't particularly care for it. They like you talked about, playing the Morehouses of the world, the Tuskegees, the Norfolk States. I think our fans would love that. Probably not going to happen, though. I don't see it, in terms of travel and logistics, unless it's a classic situation. Valley's playing in Chicago, something like that, the Gateway Classic, things like that, Circle City. But other than that, I don't see too many of those SWAC MEAC games, unless it's the MEAC SWAC Challenge, of course. But I don't see it happening in any other, just due to other factors.
Looking in the chat room, Johnny says 2023 9-2 West Champs and SWAC champ. Southern let one get away and doesn't play well one week. Well, and it's interesting. You mentioned some of the fans. You can still play your traditional HBCUs, and just my opinion, but I really look and I get the antennas up when you play a Southeastern and a Nicholls State. McNeese on Southern schedule next year. Nicholls State. Not that I'm saying you have to judge yourself based on playing them, but beating them.
Yeah.
From the recruiting standpoint, bragging rights. And yeah, they've had success against the SWAC teams. And they brag about it. They do think they're superior. And so to me, when I don't feel that way, and I know I can do better, and I've seen it in the past, how they've competed against those type of teams, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to play them, and I'm ready to kick tail. So yeah, you still can do your traditional, you know, HBCUs, but you can also play those out of conference FCS football teams.
I'm one of those, Carlos. When I first got to Alcorn 30 years ago, we won 2 SWAC championships, 1 AA playoff appearances, Northeast Louisiana and Youngstown State, and I was a fan of the playoffs, just in terms of we all know the financial disadvantage. The commissioners talked about that. There is no financial advantage for playing in the playoffs, but it's all about seeing how you compete, how you measure, how you stack up against the FCS. They have 63 scholarships, just like you have 63 scholarships. And we saw a little taste of it, Carlos, a couple years ago when Florida A&M went to the playoffs and they played Southeast Louisiana. You saw what happened there. And so those folks over there, when I say those folks, people who support the FCS, they're going to talk until we can start winning some of those games. I would love to see us to continue to play the Southeasterns, like you said, the Nicholls and the McNeese States of the world. I like to see Southern do it. I like to see more of our teams do it. It doesn't happen because we're financially tied to playing some of these money games and classics and other things. But where you really want to see the competition, in my opinion, it's just me. I love the FCS battles. When we play a McNeese, when we play a Stephen F., those are the games I really like to see because they're kind of on your level. They're kind of on your level. And Stephen F. rallied and beat us last year. Jarvion Howard with almost 300 yards rushing. And so I think clearly we could do it. It's just a matter of focusing in on it and saying, hey, this game means just as much as the SWAC, because now you got people outside of the SWAC bubble saying, you know what, we can win these games outside of our league. But it's been a continued struggle. And until we can win these games on a year in and year out basis, I think we're going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, you're talking about consistency, and that's what you want to do. I'm also going to take a look at the FCS teams bringing in the most 2023 Division I transfers. My JBN says they have the same number of scholarships authorized, but are the HBCUs funding all of those scholarships? Now, from an individual standpoint, I know Southern is. I can speak on Southern.
Alcorn is.
Mississippi Valley State now, from what I've heard, they were supposed to be getting the full allotment of scholarship. We're talking about football now,
right?
And I would think the majority of our institutions, our football programs, they will get it done. Oh, Braxton Blackwell, Carlos, my man, what's good? The long snapper specialist for Southern University. Greetings. Keep grinding, keep working. That is important. And by the way, he was a guest on this show last year as well. But Charles, FCS teams bringing in the most 2023. I mean, that's an easy one in the conference. They lead FCS. And by the way, FCS football, but Division I and everything else.
Yeah.
You want to think who's number one?
Jackson State.
Correct.
Yeah.
Number two?
Southern?
No.
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 No, number two. FCS.
Dun. Can we get a little music there? Oh my. I'll give you a clue. They play the first game in the East. There's always a battle. Whoever wins that game wins the East.
Florida A&M.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think Florida A&M was number 2. Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm. You know what? I'm gonna take a break in a minute, and then I'm gonna pull it up.
Okay.
And I'll give you the numbers. Alcorn. One thing about Alcorn, they go to transfer portal, but not much like other institutions. Grambling State and Southern are tied at 11. Why am I not amazed by that? Grambling always, whatever Southern does, Grambling's going to do. I'm taking a little shot there, but both have brought in 11 players. With that being said, I'm going to get ready to take a time out very shortly, but I want to tell you about a proud sponsor of the Carlos Brown Show, and we appreciate them. The Blue and Gold Century Club, supporter of the Carlos Brown Show. The Blue and Gold Century Club will have its meeting on Wednesday, 7 p.m. in the Field House, the Tony Clayton Room. Refreshments will be served. Membership is open to any and everyone. They are proud supporters of Jaguar Athletics. The Blue and Gold Century Club, they will have first-class bus trips to all of Southern University's away football games. Travel with the Blue and Gold Century Club to Montgomery, Alabama on September the 2nd for only $165, which includes the ticket and refreshments. And check this out. Parents of Southern University football players receives a special discount. For more information, call Craig Pierre. That's Craig Pierre at 225-324-7234. The Blue and Gold Century Club, a proud sponsor of the Carlos Brown Show. And, a few years ago, Charles, when I traveled, the franchise traveled to the away games, I traveled with the Blue and Gold Century Club. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. The friendly people. Then on the bus, after a win, there's a lot to talk about. They didn't let me rest. They talked to me. They talked to me, and I like to talk. After a loss, we still talk.
There's a lot more to talk about after a loss than a win, right?
Yeah. And so, Johnny, nobody does it better. Johnny says traveling with them for over 20 years. And, I mean, just the great chemistry, the relationships you build talking with people. And It's all so fun when you're coming back from Shreveport or out of state with a win. You just have that energy. You can talk to 4, 5 in the morning. I'm going to tell you also when we come back from a timeout about Jericho Broadcasting Network. They've got something going on that we want everyone to be involved with. We'll talk about that next. So we're going to take a timeout. When we come back, FCS teams bringing in the most 2023 Division I transfers. Thoughts and prayers to several Albany State football players who were hospitalized for fatigue-like symptoms in this heat. Southern University fall camp scrimmage continuing. Quarterback battles across the team. The pieces are in place, but as I said earlier, it gets to a point when you get through all of this, you want to hit somebody with a different jersey on. Against another team, live battles. We'll see how all of the quarterbacks will perform who will be leading their teams for the first time. You're watching the Carlos Brown Show on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em. It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
At Hampton Law, our primary goal is to provide non-traditional yet effective solutions and redefine the approach to client legal concerns. As your trusted legal advisor, we believe in sophisticated, personalized services that eliminate the confusion and complexity sometimes associated with legal matters. Our high standard for client care and concern, coupled with our extensive legal knowledge and skills, make Hampton Law a resource focused on the protection of the client's interest and overall goals. We value our clients and truly enjoy working with them. Visit thamptonlaw.com to conveniently schedule an appointment online. Tamika Hampton Esquire, 1631 Rock Springs Road, Suite 336, Apopka, Florida, 407-494-1471. thamptonlaw.com.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Stride K-12 powered schools are ready to put over 20 years of being a leader in online education to work for you. Dive into curriculum design for the online classroom. Team up with state-certified teachers trained in virtual instruction. Take control of your child's education journey. Discover the power of personalized learning with a leader experienced in preparing kids for a future they can be excited about. Take charge. Stride K-12. Enroll now for the fall.
Well, I tell you what, that's just a lovely scenery. You gotta love HBCU athletics. Let me tell you about Jericho Broadcasting Network. They're trying to take everything to the next level of interaction and sponsorship with their weekly shows and content. JBN members, they're going to have 3 different levels of membership available to support JBN and the Black College Sports Network. Beginning this month, we will offer members access to exclusive shows, first watch interviews, and discounts to Black College Sports Network merchandise. For over 25 years, JBN and the Black College Sports Network have been committed to the live coverage of HBCU events. Your membership gives you a chance to take the first step with us toward being part of the next 25 years of coverage. They want to thank you for your support. Let's see. We have the coach, Coach Pettaway, in his beautiful maroon and white attire. Alabama A&M, Charles Edmond, of course, of the Alcorn State Radio Network. And, of course, yours truly in, I guess, the traditional Columbia blue and gold. You know, growing up, we had something called sky blue. Kind of similar, but Columbia blue and gold. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody in the chat room. With that being said, Coach Pettaway, good morning. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Carlos and Charles. I'm happy to be here, man.
We're happy to have you here. And you know, Coach Pettaway, although you are the basketball guru, you know all sports. You can talk all sports. And
Right,
sometimes I
right.
have to remember that. Not just only basketball, but football. But Coach Pettaway, I'm getting ready to pull up the FCS teams bringing in the most 2023 Division I transfers. That's from either FCS and FBS. I gave Charles a little quiz. He was 50-50. Jackson State number 1, FAMU was number 2. Coach Pettaway, Alabama A&M, the previous year they brought in a tremendous amount, but it is the way of the world now, the transfer portal.
Right. I think everybody's using that now. And then, like today, we're having a scrimmage. The scrimmage is on campus. In fact, it should be going on as we speak now. And I'm hoping that the kids, they come out of that safely in terms of no injuries and then no heat-related activities, because it is kind of humid here in Huntsville. We do have an overcast. It is overcast, but, it's humid here too. So, it's been in the 90s the last several weeks, and so I know what they're doing. They're getting it in early and they're going late to avoid some of that heat. So, but when it comes down to scrimmage, I know they have to do it during the daytime hours, because you're gonna end up playing during that time. Mm-hmm. So they got to get the kids acclimated to it, and you just got to be smart. You got to be cautious, and you got to make sure that you got medical people right there waiting for those kids. You don't react after it happens. You have them there on site so that you can help neutralize whatever's going on.
Coach, Coach Pettaway, I have never heard the word heat and Huntsville used in the same thing. Because every time I come to Huntsville, no matter what time of year, I got to bring a skull cap, and especially in October, November. That's the first time, Carlos, I've heard Huntsville and heat mentioned in the same sentence. I am shocked.
Yeah. But Charles, you got to think about this now. It was kind of humid in Elmore now for basketball.
Oh, yeah.
We turn the heat up in there. But you're right. We're normally known for the cold. And but this time of the year, the dog days of the summer and in August, they're going to get some heat and humidity. So they got the coaching staff and our training staff, they got to be smart about it.
Yeah. You said the keywords being smart,
right.
Because we talked about the Albany State players, having to be hospitalized. And,
but Carlos, we had something worse than that happen this week here in Alabama. The number 2 ranked basketball player in our state, young kid from Pennsylvania Valley, man, he died on the court.
Yeah.
Wow.
He died while working out, pickup basketball. The kid died, man. And he's one of the top kids in the state and one of the top in the nation. I think he's ranked like 20-something in the nation. Mm-hmm. So, and last name is Taylor. So, our hearts and our thoughts go out to to his family. But you just got to be, man, in this day and time, you never know. That's why on the spiritual side, man, that's why you got to be connected, man, because you never know how long we have on this earth. Anything can happen. We had this scare a couple of weeks ago with Bronny James. So you never know when things are going to happen. That's why I think that you got to always be prepared, even at a young age. You got to be ready, man.
And that's kind of the most tragic part, because these are young athletes,
right?
And it's very, very, very tough. So I'm sorry to hear that, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the young player and his family. FCS teams bringing in the most 2023 Division I transfers. This was an article by Sam Herder, dated August the 9th, 2023. Let's just get to the good parts. Figures as of August the 9th, Jackson State, 29. Wow. Transfers in 17 FBS, 12 from FCS. FAMU coming in at number 2, 28. Only 1 behind. And Charles, you don't think it's pressure on Willie Simmons? Yes, because they've got to defeat Jackson State. No excuses this time from some of the FAMU Rattlers. You know, Coach Sanders is gone. Shadur is gone. They've recruited well. They brought in almost as many transfers. If you don't get it done this year, no excuse. And then, of course, Northern Arizona 28, Incarnate Word, Campbell, Robert Morris. But now, FCS teams that brought in 15 or more FCS transfers in 2022 and their 2021 versus 22 record. This is interesting. Oh, what is this? Alabama A&M.
Yep.
Went from 7-3 the previous year, brought in those transfers, went to a disappointing 4-7. Coach Pettaway, Coach Maynard's outspoken. He's a funny guy. He speaks his mind. Is there any pressure for him this year? Does he have to hit certain benchmarks?
Well, I think it's the pressure he puts on himself. You know, if you really know Coach Maynard, he's self-motivated. Mm-hmm. He puts that pressure on himself. He wants to win. He's won everywhere he's been, and he wants to continue that here. And he was very disappointed that that group of transfers did not mesh to where they had a better season last year. But they've hit the ground running. He expects that quarterback battle to be settled pretty soon, and he's looking forward to this season. He thinks that he's got a good group of kids, and from what I've been hearing, that everybody likes the fact that the team seems to have gelled together. The players were here for the summer, and everybody talks about the positive attitude that they see when they see the kids out. So I think we might be in for something this year.
Now, you know, it's interesting, Charles and Coach Pettaway. We often talk about it, particularly in basketball. You bring in players. Even if you don't bring in players, you have to have the chemistry, right? And so sometimes you bond, and I look at specifically here at Southern University, some of the players. Gary Quarles came from Alabama A&M. He came in. First thing what he said he fit right in. Because he played in the conference, that's one thing. But he mentioned the culture. He said, he even mentioned the food, Coach Pettaway. I guess he likes Louisiana cuisine. But you got to get those kids to buy in, and that is always a important cog. Chemistry and how those players can bond together.
Right. See, it's very important that your team bond. See, a lot of times you're going to have a good team if your kids can come together off of practice, away from practice. If they do things together, they can't wait just until practice and games to try to be together. They got to do that away. They got to build that chemistry amongst themselves. And that's why I think it's so important that the NC2A continue to allow these kids to come to summer school, let the universities pay for it, keep these kids together, because that's the only time to bond. Because now when classes start, that's a different animal, because you got different schedules when it comes to classes. All your kids are not going to be in the same class. So the only time they're going to see each other is on the practice field. And it's hard to bond just at practice. Right. So it's got to be done away from the practice field, away from competition. It can start in your weight room on their own. You know, being in the weight room, coming to one cause, let's get better, let's get stronger, let's get faster. You can start in the weight room, but then they got to do things on that campus and away from that campus to get that chemistry that they're going to need when the tough times hit. Because when you hit a wall in practice, you got to be able to count on each other to help bring you out of that. You don't always have to need your coaches to do that. A championship team, they're going to have coaches within the student ranks. In other words, you're going to have players that are going to take accountability for that team and the responsibility of making sure that, hey, fellas, we drag it in practice. We need to pick it up. There are things that we got to accomplish during this practice session. So let's have a good practice. What they want to do is try to build consistency from practice to practice and week to week. They got to build up toward that first game. In some cases, some of them got 2 weeks. Other people got 3 weeks. But that chemistry, it should have started over the summer. It should have started back in the spring when they had spring football, when they were lifting. In football, it should have really started when your season ended. When your season ended for the returning players, they should have started that process. Then as you recruit, when your new kids come on campus, you incorporate them. But it's got to be more than just that coaching staff. The players have to buy in, and they have to get it done amongst themselves so that when they hit a rough patch, they can rely on each other. They can believe in each other. And that's what, as a coach, that's what you look for in knowing that you got a good team.
Well, I can say this, Carlos and Coach, that, you know, I'm around in the summer, and we had a number of players that were in summer school, and I eat in the campus cafeteria. And you talk about the bonding and camaraderie. That's one of the best places to do it. And I'm there most of the time when they're eating lunch, and they're all sitting together at 1 or 2 or 3 big tables, just joking. Just they ain't talk about football. I mean, I ear hustle sometimes, but you know, they talk about football, but they don't. It's just talking about the game of life or whatever it is that's going on. And I think that is hugely important. And even in today's scrimmage, Carlos, when the defense was slagging a little bit, you had guys that, come on, pick it up. You know, you didn't hear the defensive coaches, Cedric Thomas or other guys talking about it. It was the leaders on that defensive side and even on the offensive side when we struggled to kind of say, come on, let's pick it up. So that chemistry, that buy-in, all that is important if you want to win at whatever level. And I think you're going to see that from some of these teams going forward.
Yeah, and you know, Jess, I'm kind of looking in the chat room, and you know, and I had to tell somebody at my full-time gig this week when they were talking about you know, the weather and stuff. You know, particularly weather interests me. You know, maybe in my former life I was a meteorologist or a forecaster, but those things are just interesting. And then you get into the conversation. Even some in the chat room was like, well, we used to do 3-a-days. We used to do, okay, I'm middle-aged. I don't remember it being, and Will and Coach Pettaway and Charles, you can speak on this. I don't remember it being as hot as it is now. So you can be Mr. Tough Guy if you want to. Mother Nature has a way of putting you in check. And you got to be careful. It's not about who's the toughest. It's about who's the smartest. Yeah, used to do 3-a-days. Yeah, no water breaks. I understand that. But now, from an administrative perspective, Wheeler and Coach Pettaway, from a coaching perspective, a tragic thing happens. One of those student athletes passes away. You're looking at a damaging lawsuit.
Correct. Right. I agree.
Put me in the room,
that's
Carlos.
why I think.
Put me in the room.
Go ahead, Willa. Go ahead, Willa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're in the room.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No problem.
You know, Carlos, back when 2010, when I was at the North Carolina A&T and I was the AD there, one of our track coaches had an unauthorized tryout. And kid ran around the track one time and fell out and died. And, you know, I mean, so, you know, I know firsthand, you know, how those things can get away from you very, very quickly. And, you know, how if you don't have coaches with integrity, if you don't have adequate staff available, if you don't have, you know, trainers and, you know, la-da-da, so forth and so on, you know, if you don't have all those things in place, things can get away from you very quickly. And so it's like you guys were saying, it's nothing to play with. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And, you know, having grown up in the 70s and, you know, played college football in the 70s, that sort of thing. And it was hot back then, you know, and we had 3-a-days, 4-a-days, and all that stuff. We walked 10 miles. We walked 10 miles to school one way and back. And, you know, all the kind of stuff that go with that. But, you know, it's just nowadays, this is just a different animal all the way around, you know, and if you don't respect it, you know, then, you know, a disaster is just really just waiting to happen. So, you know, you want to make sure I's and T's are dotted and crossed. You want to err on the side of caution at all times. And, you know, you got to have coaches with the integrity coaches that are not, you want the tough guy, no doubt about that. You're looking for the tough guy, that sort of thing. But there is a limit to that toughness, and, if you're not wary of that, then you're going to be on the wrong end of something terrible, which is what you definitely do not want.
Right. And see, another thing that we as coaches, we have to take that responsibility too, to make sure that we're doing things right. I have never practiced a kid who did not get a physical. I had our university make sure that they had a physical before I ever put them through any workouts. I've tried never to do a workout unless I had a trainer available. And then for myself, I learned CPR. I did some of the things to help and protect myself. And I was just fortunate enough during my career that I never had a player to go down to where during my practice that required hospitalization. Now, have I had kids get overheated? Yes, but not to the point where they had to be hospitalized. And then the other thing is education. We have to educate our athletes. I talk to them about how rigorous my practices are going to be. So now you got to prepare your body by, number one, eating the right things, hydrating, and then making sure that you're not putting things in your body that are going to go against the training that you're going to receive. In other words, you need to stay away from the alcohol and drugs during the season because we're going to work hard. And I don't want your body to be compromised because of one of my workouts because of something you put in your body. So that's the understanding. But, we have to be realistic. Everybody's not going to heed to that. So we have to be prepared on the other end to make sure that if something happens during that practice or during that game, we got professional help right there to help minimize whatever damage may happen to those athletes. And I think that's what has really changed. Number one, the student athletes have changed because they don't have as much commitment as some of the athletes in the older times because they didn't have all those things to do. In other words, you only had your sport. If you played 3 sports, that's what you had to do. Now they got so many other options that they're not training like they used to in the olden days. And I think that's a big difference. That's why the athletes have changed. You got climate change. It's hotter now. The scientists have been telling you that because of climate change, things have changed in the atmosphere. So it's hotter out there now. But we still have to be smart. We have to be diligent and make sure that we're not doing too much with those athletes. We're making sure that we're giving them proper water breaks. Back when I played in high school and college, we didn't get water breaks, man. What was that? That was unheard of. So, but now, since 1983, when I started coaching, water breaks are built into practice. You can pick up one of my practice schedules, and it'll tell you when a water break is coming up. Those are the ones that I have scheduled. And then if I'm smart enough to see that if my team is dragging, I might add in another water break and give them a chance to recover because I wasn't there. I'm there to get them prepared to play. I'm not there to try to injure anybody through my workouts and stuff, but they are going to be intense because I want you to be intense when you play the game. But we have to be smart.
But understanding this, guys, and I'm sorry to interrupt, understanding this, bottom line at the end of the day, you're an athlete. You chose to play a particular sport. Okay. And me as a coach, if I'm not there to push you to the max, to make sure that you're working hard and maximizing your abilities, then I'm not doing what I need to do from a coaching point of view. So, as Coach Pettaway said, it's about communication. You letting these kids know up front, this is no picnic. This is how it's going to be when you walk in the door. This is what you need to do to prepare yourself for the agony that's ahead, and that we're expecting you to come in here, in a certain physical condition to be ready for the rigors of what it is that we're trying to do. But make no mistake, we're here to push you to maximize your abilities And if we're not doing that as coaches, then we're selling these kids short. So my thing is, as long as you're putting that out there up front, that they understand that their parents understand that, when you walk through these doors in August, come August 1, be ready because we're going at it. Coaches are going to coach you hard. This is still football, gentlemen. This is still a big boy sport. So put your big boy drawers on, and let's get ready to get busy. But like I said, if we're not pushing our kids and helping them to maximize their abilities, then in the end we're doing them a disservice in terms of not just that sport, but in their lives all the way around.
I would also like to add too, there's another piece to it in terms of protecting the university. I understand, and I work with coaches. A lot of these coaches that we have here do the CPR training and all of that to make sure they're as prepared as possible in case something happens. And I think, athletics has to be prepared because we're in a different culture now. You can sue a ham sandwich if you want to. And so when things happen, when someone passes away due to alleged whatever, that's out there because you're going to be examined in terms of your protocol, your practices, your water breaks when things happen. In the state, and I've mentioned it last week, in the state of Mississippi, the high school association passed a rule that any outdoor activities must cease when the heat index exceeds 105 degrees. And I just found out the other day from my bowling partner who works for a school here in Vicksburg, there's an app that the high school association uses, and it tells you what the temperature is and the heat index, and you must document these things when you have outdoor activities, whether it's band, whether it's cross country, soccer, whatever. You got to document these things because if something happens, then you have to backtrack that and prove that. So those, we're just in a different culture in that as well, in terms of when these things do happen, the finger's going to be pointed at someone, at some situation, at some coach, some superintendent, some AD. And this is just, this unfortunate part from from an administrative standpoint. This is just the times that we're in now. So you have to protect yourself at all costs.
And Charles, just like you're not going to tell a coach what play to run, I'm not going to tell the athletic trainer when it's safe for us to be out there and when it's not safe for us to be out there. We as athletic administrators have to rely on people whose expertise is in these areas. So I expect my head athletic trainer or whomever the physician in charge, to keep me abreast of everything that's going on, just like you wouldn't play a kid that's injured, and look to damage him further. It's the same thing, as it pertains to the weather, things of that nature. The athletic trainer has carte blanche in terms of deciding, what direction we go in, how we go about it, and in no uncertain terms. There's no conversation about that. There's no debate or anything like that. If the trainer comes in and says, Coach so-and-so, we don't need to go out there right now because of this, that, and the other. We're not having a debate about it with the coach saying, well, let's give it 5 minutes and revisit it and all that. No, there's no conversation about it. That word is law. And that's it, and if you're a coach, you want to lose your job very quickly, then, you don't abide by, those particular guidelines, that sort of thing.
Let me do this. We need to take a break, and then I want to go in the chat room. EA had a point that to Coach Pettaway. I want to read that. Then we're going to add Dr. Cavill because we're going to add another piece to this conversation, and we'll move on from it and go to about Coach Pettaway, the point you made last week about the ever-changing landscape of college athletics. We see everything that's happening in the Pac-12, and now institutions are switching. And I think you brought up the point about how will that affect HBCUs, specifically the MEAC and the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So we'll kind of look to the future. and we'll add Dr. Cavill to this conversation. We're going to take a break. You're watching the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
I'm returning to Clinton Paris, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being heard.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Charles, I heard a rumor that because you're a Grambling alum, you have 10 tickets to Grambling and LSU in football this season. Is that true?
That is absolutely, positively, 1,000,000% not true. I wish I did, but I do not. That is factually incorrect, Dr. Cavill. That is not true.
Oh, I had to pick at him. Welcoming in Dr. Cavill inside the HBCU Sports Lab joins us, and we're going to get his perspective on a couple of topics. One being the MEAC and the SWAC, looking in the future with the landscape of college athletics forever changing, always changing. Will we see a different MEAC and SWAC? Will they become one? Charles, last week I saw your facial expression. You were like, no, it's not going to happen. But anyway, we're going to talk about that. But if I can, I want to go in the chat room and kind of wrap up what we were talking about in the last segment. EA basically said he had a concern about, as I pull it up here, here's a major issue with our HBCU medical staff that seriously concerns me. How many HBCU have AEDs at every practice for football, soccer, volleyball? He says, I'm willing to bet a few because of cardiac arrest, heart issues. Wheeler, what do you think?
I believe it's mandatory now, Carlos.
Yep.
And I believe it's mandatory now. And, to have AEDs available, in your facilities where, you're practicing. Like I know even at Fort Valley State when I was there, we had one in the gymnasium, readily available. We had the trainer had one during, football practices right there on the sideline, that sort of thing. And so we had portable ones that we would take with us, to the games, things of that nature. So, we've spared no expense. And I think pretty much all the schools are in the same mode. So the coaches are trained, as part of the CPR first aid training. They're trained in terms of using the AEDs, that sort of thing, and they have to be certified on them every year, every summer as they get ready to come back to school, that sort of thing. So I think in the past it was an issue, and there's probably still an issue, Carlos, in terms of our schools not having enough money to hire numerous athletic trainers, that sort of thing. And that's where you have to become creative. That's where your coaches have to put their heads together to make sure that we're not oversaturating the support staff, that we're scheduling practice times with those things in mind. I've seen trainers come and go simply because they're being worked to death. And, and it's difficult to keep good trainers. So naturally, you're going to pay, out of the yin yang for a good trainer, and not just to pay for that trainer, but then you're going to pay to keep that trainer, because somebody's always trying to get, your better folk, that sort of thing. So, but I think times have changed now, Carlos, to the point where, CPR training is mandatory for all coaches. AED training is mandatory for all coaches. It's mandatory that you have 2 or 3 AEDs on campus and all that sort of thing. And, a lot of times we have utilized resources from other parts of campus because, quite frankly, contrary to popular belief, they are students first and athletes second. So, having AED in the gymnasium, helps if something happens in a class or, something like that. So it's just not something that's relegated to athletics. It's a universal wide type of issue.
Right. And Carlos, I knew before I left Alabama A&M, I know we had AEDs because one of our alumni donated two to our athletic department.
Mm-hmm.
One of them kept in Elmore. In fact, it was in my suite until we realized, well, if I'm gone and it's locked up in my suite, nobody can use it. So we took it out of the basketball suite and they put it in a central location. So now I left in 2011, and I think we got these around maybe 2005 or somewhere around there. So I think the schools understand the importance of having that type of emergency equipment around. And just like Mr. Willis said, some of them is campus wide. It's not just athletics now. So right. I think in that case, things have gotten better. And one of the things that we did at Alabama A&M, we as coaches, we put our heads together and we pooled money to get a second athletic trainer when I was there. We had one along with the graduate assistants, but we knew that as our department was growing, we needed more help. So as coaches, everybody pulled a few dollars out of their budget to where we can come up with a good salary to add our second one. So there are creative ways of doing it. And then one of the things for an athletic director, go out and visit that local hospital. Go to the biggest medical administration in your city and come up with a deal with them. Let them provide you with help. So you got to be creative with it, but you got to look out for those student athletes. So it's mandatory. You got to.
And as Coach is saying, it's just not an athletic issue. You know, it's a university-wide issue. You know, and when you involve the university administration in this, you know, if you have their backing and they're going out there with you, you know, to visit these medical centers and all that sort of thing, and, you know, you're coming up with, you know, some kind of consortium, you know, in terms of getting more help, you know, for your kids, that sort of thing, then it speaks volumes. It really says a lot, you know, about your university, so forth and so on.
Well, with that being said, EA, I guess hopefully that kind of the guys addressed your concerns about that. Dr. Cavill, good afternoon. Welcome to the Carlos Brown Show.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to say thanks. I've made it officially. I'm on Carlos Brown Show with the voice of the people, the voice of the SWAC, the voice of HBCU, Charles Stedman. I'm with legendary AD, Wheeler Brown, Hall of Fame, Coach and Fedaway. You don't get much better than that. And as the gentleman was saying, and it was alluded on there in terms of Prairie A&M having AEDs, and a lot of states are now mandatory, and that's from high school all the way up. People are putting in, we just recently in our College of Education, where I'm associate dean on that side, we have AEDs literally on every floor of the building. And that's throughout campus. So it's not only that. And then you have at a lot of huge events, game days now, you have a ambulance there on site that is part of the situation that not only will help anything that happens on the court, they'll do it in terms of folks in the stands where we've seen them provide medical attention. So the heighten to safety and what's taking place funding wise is not a big issue as it has been in the past. People understand from administrators all the way from the chancellors, board of regents, presidents, ADs, vice presidents, all the way down to deans, provosts. They understand the importance of protecting students on campus.
You know, and that's good. And there's an old saying, it's better to have those things in place and not need them than to need them and don't have them in place. Speaking of in place, Dr. Cavill, I asked you to come on and kind of give your perspective, the possibility of the MEAC and the SWAC in the future as one conference navigating through the challenges of college athletics. I've learned in my middle-aged years that things are always changing, and sometimes you have to adapt. If you don't, you get left behind on some situations. But Coach Pettaway brought that up last week when I was talking about college athletics, and just it's always changing, and we see things are moving from a perspective. And I know years ago you visited my home and you let me peek at a study you were working on about the possibility of the conference as a whole, you know, just kind of looking at the perspective of maybe how would it be moving up. But anyway, I'll stop there. But the perspective of the MEAC and the Southwestern Athletic Conference in this ever-changing college athletics landscape.
Appreciate it. When Coach Pettaway brought that out, boy, I was excited. I say, oh, it's going to get hot in here. It's going to get interesting. That's a topic that never gets old and dies. And I think it is important for us to engage into the intellectual process of at least thinking about it. You know, what does that look like? And so I think a couple of questions come together first. that can show us the benefits of what it might look like, and certainly the challenges of what it would look like. And the first thing is, I think, in terms of challenges that I want to put on the table is the resources. And so essentially with Coach Pettaway, the way that I heard what he was saying was this may be an opportunity to increase resources. And so the question is where does it take away those resources? And so one of the things that I know a lot of people out there are concerned about is the money associated with conferences, which obviously the SWAC and the MEAC get from the NCAA. So if you combine that, and whether it's at the FBS level or the FCS level, that's one less bid going away from the tournament. We've seen that in baseball with the MEAC falling below the numbers, and 4 of the teams that still play had to go to the NEC. So now they no longer get the bid, but it's even more important for basketball because that $1.5 million, it continues to go up. Now one of the conferences, no longer get that money. So that means if you're looking at it from a television broadcast perspective, you would want to make sure whatever new broadcast deal you get, that it would supersede the money you lost from just one conference. So I certainly understand what you're talking about, but I just wanted to make sure others out there listening to us consider that. And a lot of the dialogue that I really get excited when literally Wheeler Brown, Van Pettaway, Charles get in here, when you start talking about the business of sports, it is extremely important because you're educating our fans at a level that they hadn't had access to. And generally speaking, the more educated we are, the better informed and the better decisions all of us can make as a collective in terms of HBCU sports. So fascinating dialogue, and I'll leave it there for a minute.
Right. And see, Dr. Bill, what I was saying, I wanted them to just look at with the way that the FBS conferences are realigning, this would be the opportunity for us as the SWAC and the MEAC to look at to see if we could come together, come up with a super conference, a North and a South, or either East and the West, however you want to do it, but you still play regional. In other words, the MEAC schools will still play against each other on the regional and the Olympic sports, and then we would come together at the end of the year for a basketball championship, a football championship, and at the same time, wouldn't we be able to come up with a television deal that will give us enough money that will make up for losing that one bid? That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
I know, even when I was coaching, I attempted to put together a MEAC SWAC challenge in basketball preseason, and I was bumping my head because I could not get enough people to understand that it was needed and that we should do it. So I'm just throwing that out there. I think it will work if the right people got together and looked at it. And like you're saying, I guess the most important piece of it would be the financial piece. But I was saying you don't have to put a strain on the SWAC or the MEAC by doing this interconference travel. You don't have to do that. Stay regional. That's what I was looking at.
I think Willa wants to say something. Mr. Conservative.
You might get Hampton and some of the other schools that left the MEAC. They may come back, and then we can add in a Tennessee State. I think it'd be a super conference. Go ahead, Will.
I think for me, the bottom line being the non-revenue sports. Right. At the end of the day, your track and field, your baseball, your softball, your volleyball, things of that nature. It would be very difficult for them to be a part of this from a financial point of view. I think your revenue sports like football, basketball, those things you can kind of twist and turn and put in a bag and shake up and down and, maybe come up with an acceptable formula for getting those things done, but the revenue sports, the non-revenue sports, which are just as much of a drain on an athletic budget, you can only imagine if Delaware State has to travel to Texas Southern, or Arkansas Pine Bluff, or vice versa, and to play a single softball game, or to play a doubleheader in softball, stay overnight, and play 2 more the next night, that sort of thing. So I just think from a non-revenue sport point of view, somebody will have to come up with hell of a formula in terms of trying to get those things done. And I understand what Coach Pettaway is saying in terms of doing it on a regional basis, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if I'm a part of a conference, I want to play those guys. I want to play those guys on the regular. I don't want to wait until conference tournament time to play Texas Southern if I'm Delaware State. I don't want to wait until conference tournament time, to play, some of those other schools that geographically may be far away from me. So we would have to try to find a way to incorporate that, to make that happen, to make it financially feasible for everybody, with the understanding that, some of these budgets aren't going to change, regardless of, where you are in school you're at. Valley's budget is going to be Valley's budget. Jackson State's budget is going to be Jackson State's budget. So unless there's a big infusion of cash on that flip side, I don't know that you can realistically expect me at Mississippi Valley to, travel to Delaware State to play, or travel to Howard or Morgan, that sort of thing to play, and on a regular basis anyway, and I already have the 3rd worst budget in all of NCAA Division I. So, I mean, it's going to take a hell of a vision in order to make it happen. Not to say that it cannot happen. That's not what I'm saying, but stronger heads than mine are going to have to get at the table to come up with the formula that's going to be suitable for everybody, and to make sure that financially it works for everybody.
Well, I have a point to make. How much of this, as far as the MEAC is concerned? All right, so we know the MEAC has lost a number of members, and the MEAC is a shell of its former self. We all know the financial piece of it. Dr. Cavilles can break it down and talk about that. But then you also have another component of the loyalists. You read on social media, there are a lot of MEAC folks, young and old, or maybe more so older, that want to see the MEAC stay intact. And I just saw a post that said, we don't need a super conference, we need a larger MEAC. That's kind of where I was thinking, in terms of, instead of one super conference. And I get the financials of it. I mean, the dynamics are changing, there's no doubt. But how much of the pushback would be from the MEAC side, to where we've been a conference since 1898, I don't know the year, but how much of the loyalists would win out over the financialists in this case? Because I think if that happened, I think there would be some pushback from the MEAC side of it. And as much as I would like to see it, I think, as Wheeler Brown pointed out, the financials would be tough to work. But then how much of the loyalists want to keep tradition where it is, keep the MEAC where it is, keep it intact as best as you can, and add teams to the MEAC? So how much of that will play into the whole conversation?
I think that's probably the biggest issue, is those that are dedicated to the past. And some people literally have jobs on the line, because now you go into one commissioner. So you're exiting a commissioner. What does that do to the SWAC challenge, SWAC MEAC challenge? Celebration Bowl is another question in regards, and the funds that go with it. I don't get caught up into the travel as much. I think that's something that is overstated. I understand it, because even in the SWAC now, it's spread from Texas to Florida, and they do creative ways where they, in all non-revenue sports, they play in divisions. Now, Wheeler Brown has a point. If you're an athlete and you have some coaches that continue to try to negotiate and say they want to change the format of the scheduling because they want to see more crossover, but ADs that understand the financials don't do it. So basically you would have pods that would make sure that the traveling issue wouldn't be something that is an issue. You even see that in basketball. You have it now where the Texas schools will not travel to Florida, Alabama in the same year. So it reduces the travel and vice versa. The Alabama states and Floridas will not travel to Texas or Pine Bluff and Valley in the same year. So you take out the multiple travels and planes, you only have one trip. One of them's coming to you and you go to them, and that flips to the next year. So that's just an example of the reduction of travel that you see, and that's and you have the roundups. You see them do the roundups in volleyball. Now it's recently gone away, but there's ways that you can get into that point. But I think the bigger issue is what Charles Edmonds just talked about, of those that have a history since 1970, 50 plus years, that would not give up their history. And it sounds like y'all have already decided that this new super conference is going to keep the name of SWAC. That's going to get out there. You know, what is the name of this conference? And you're going to have a major problem if you don't include the history in regards to the name of the SWAC. So is this new super conference going to be SWAC MEAC? you know, how does that work? So it can get even worse if you just automatically associated that the SWAC is taking over, because that's what a lot of folks are going to think about, particularly with the MEAC saying right now, we own y'all in the celebration boat. So that's a whole different conversation.
And the SWAC MEAC challenge.
Well, it's a little over the
little
years,
better.
but since it's in Atlanta, it's about 2-2. So I kind of look at that a little different in regards to that. And you even go back to the cancellation, it's been 3-3. So that's been different over the last couple of years in terms of the measure. And the regular seasons, you basically have close matchups. It's just been the celebration bowl that has overwhelmingly been in the favor of the MEAC.
And guys, I thought about this the other day, just in preparing for this conversation. What if the shoe were on the other foot? Let's say the MEAC stays whole, and let's say some members of the SWAC leave, and we're a shell of our former selves like the MEAC is now. How will we feel as supporters, graduates of SWAC schools? How will we feel about our league and joining and merging with the MEAC? Will we turn into traditionalists and saying, hey, the MEAC has been around, the SWAC has been around for however long it's been around. We don't want to do this. We want to keep our traditions. And so I just thought about it from me. I want to keep the SWAC. I'm a product of a SWAC school, graduated from one, worked for one. I don't know how other folks in the SWAC would feel if, I mean, this is hypothetical, of course, but if the shoe were on the other foot and we were impacted by this, how would we feel about, and if it proposed to us from the East Coast, hey, y'all need to come and join the MEAC and we can be this one super conference, how would we feel?
They were trying to do it at one time, pre-Charles commissioner. It was a little closer than hypothetical than you want to speak to. There was some serious thoughts with teams looking at it. Certainly, I know other conferences were seeking different SWAC schools to join them. And fortunately, it did not happen. And now the SWAC, in terms of the financials, is in a very strong place. But the MEAC is too. But again, I think this is just from a theoretical approach. And again, I will say this. We have to look at this. We cannot just be in a position where we're not innovative and looking at the options. Just because you look at it doesn't mean that it's going to go down, because you're going to look at the pros and cons, which is what we're just discussing now. That it is not feasible to really do it for whatever reason, or there is not enough money, or there's not enough guarantee that the television money will cover the cost of money lost. Then anybody here will sit up there and says, no, it ultimately doesn't make sense. But to have the dialogue is the important part, to say, all right, this and other dialogues in regards to how do we continue to push the conference forward.
Right, Dr.
Because I think the biggest thing is what as HBCUs, we need to be looking at our future. We're not saying that it has to happen, but we got to have the foresight to look ahead, look down the road, to see what's best for all of the HBCUs in the MEAC and the SWAC.
Because
that's all I'm saying.
And guys, I think I think as our fan base gets younger, I think they'll be more receptive to that change. I think right now, with our fan base being, excuse me, my age, or somewhere in the middle there, kind of straddling the line there, 50 plus, that sort of thing. It's going to be difficult to get everybody on board to make that change. But I think as that fan base turns over and continues to get younger, then there may be more of a call for, a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. And, Carlos, I graduated from A&T, and, nobody's been through more change conference-wise pretty much than them.
Yeah.
When I played ball there, we were at MEAC school, that sort of thing. The MEAC was just pretty much just forming. And, so I'm in on the ground floor, of the MEAC. So I had the opportunity to watch it grow and develop and, become to where it is right now. And, so I'm a loyalist in terms of the way things used to be. So I cringed when they went to the Big South. I cringed again when they went to the CAA. And, but I understand the dynamics behind it and the business decisions that are made simply because of my athletic administration background. So that helped me to understand things a little more. And I think as more people delve into that side of things and get to know and get to find out, the financials and the things that go along with that, I think you'll get people that'll be more receptive to change in terms of whatever direction our schools decide to go in. But until somebody's helping these D2 schools to look to move up, that sort of thing, I don't see any of these guys moving in the next 8 to 9 years.
That was my follow-up question. I didn't want to get you in trouble with it. I was going to ask about what SIAC schools might be coming next.
When you look at it at the end of the day, you can look at the candidates, from Virginia State to Tuskegee to, the list just goes on and on. The cost of moving from D2 to D1 is prohibitive right there. And if the new conference that these schools are looking to go into is not willing to carry a big chunk of that cost, then you can pretty much forget any D2 moving up, in the near future. It's just not worth it to them. So you got a lot of things that go into play.
Well, let me ask you this. Well, maybe this conversation kind of moved because I agree when you were saying, you're at least thinking about it, having that dialogue and discussion. Also, within the discussion, HBCUs from the SIAC, CIAA, SWAC, and the MEAC. Could there be a chance one day in the future that they say we're going to have our own championships, in football and sports? Do we have the mindset, or will we have the mindset, you think, to be able to say we'll have our own, especially when everything is changing and the Power Fives? You've heard the conversation that a group of them are going to leave the NCAA and form their own. Would we have, Dr. Cavill, the mindset to look at that and say we'll have our own HBCU football playoffs, including the Division II HBCUs?
Yeah, I think we will. I think we continue to have the mindset because we play it out, especially when you talk about the fans. They put a lot on there, but don't think these ADs and VPs of athletics are not on their job. They look at a lot of different things. They have great discussions when they come together in these meetings where they put different things on the table. I think the bottom line, especially if you're going to get the votes from the president and chancellors, the ultimate question in all this is going to be, is it financially feasible? Much like you've seen the Celebration Bowl with the MEAC for a while, as the incarnation as we know the history to be now, it was 10 years in the making. It wasn't until the money got to a certain threshold that the MEAC chancellors and presidents, to some degree, some of the ADs were saying, okay, we have to do this. There's enough money on the table that it just makes sense to do this now. Previous that, it wasn't worth it. So if there are corporations that support the fact that there is money on the table that they believe that they can showcase these championships for HBCUs, and I would say outside of the sport of basketball where there's so much D1 money that it's hard to really get to the point where you think you're going to get $1.5 million to showcase that. But if you can get significant money, $500,000 to $1 million to do a baseball championship with all HBCUs, there's going to be a serious indication that they think about how to get that done, because they're not going to want to not leave that money on the table. You just heard Wheeler talking about the money. The money drives all this. You put enough money on the table, you'd be surprised what can get done.
And Carlos, I would say,
and I'm gonna have to work on Wheeler there, because he you know, I always throw stuff on him, and I always get pushback. I love it.
But you know,
and I would add this. I would add this, Carlos. Football wise, there's two numbers you need to be aware of, and that's 63 and 36. You know, at the end of the day, those numbers aren't going to change at the end of the day. You know, and while you may have an upset here, there, you know, at the end of the day, you know, 63 is going to trump 36 9 out of 10 times. You know, so, you know, if you're talking about a true football playoff, that sort of thing, you're not really doing the D2 schools a service in terms of sticking them out there and expecting them to fight and battle and compete for 60 minutes, you know, with the school that has almost twice as many scholarships as they have, that sort of thing. So, you know, I don't know how you make that playing field even. You know, I just can't see that at all. You know, and so, you know, that would be the biggest drawback, you know, from a true football round robin type thing, that sort of thing. I mean, you know, it generates interest and all that sort of thing, and you know, people will be chomping at the bit to see Tuskegee play South Carolina State or whomever. You know, just throwing those two names out there. You know, but at the end of the day, that 63 is going to do something to that 36.
Can't the 37 and the 37 go against each other, and then the 63 and the 63?
But now, Carlos, when it comes to basketball, now I am part of a group or a study that's trying to come up with a Black College National Championship in basketball for both men and women. Okay, and the way this thing would be set up, it would not keep a team from going to the NC2A, because in fact the tournament would not even start until the Final Four. Now, by that time, if you still got an HBCU in the Final Four, let that team stay in there. But this group is looking at trying to do a national championship for both men and women to involve NAIA Division II and Division I basketball. And that proposal is out there. They've already gone to the NC2A to get approval on it, and they're waiting for the money to get right before they present it. They're waiting for the money to get right before they present it.
Did you run it through
Coach Pettaway, my only thing is, let me throw this in real quick. Let me throw this in. Okay, my only thing. Go ahead. My only thing is that time frame is already saturated, you know, with the March Madness and all that stuff that goes along with that. Are we really doing our schools a disservice in terms of trying to, let's say, bump heads or compete with that status quo?
No, Willa, the tournament would be the week of the Final Four. You would start that Monday, in your championship game would be on Friday, and everybody would still be able to, you would not be competing with the Final Four. Remember, the Final Four is on a Saturday, Monday. Your tournament would conclude that Friday.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
The week of.
Right. It's the week of the Final Four. Not at the same time.
They introduced the HBCU All-Star. They play it on Sunday in between.
Right.
If you're doing it in the city, same city, the fortune they have with the HBCU All-Star game is the trucks and cameras are already there.
Right.
That's
and
one thing.
And then, but Dr. Cavill, we had picked Atlanta for the first site. Atlanta would be the first site for this national championship. And the time frame, what we would do is allow your conference champions, your automatics, to go ahead and play. Go ahead and play in the NC2A. If you are eliminated, you still have a chance to play for the national championship. But if you're in the Final Four, you don't need to be in our national championship.
No, you don't.
Right.
Hey, you good.
Right.
You real good.
Yeah. So no, I'm just throwing that out there. That discussion has already been there for basketball.
I've heard about it, and I know it's pretty serious. I know some of the commissioners have looked at it and given the general okay if the money is there. So there's a lot of support that's galvanizing. So it'll be interesting to see if the NCAA will give the support behind it in terms of the rule guidelines, which is going to be a challenge in that framework. But again, I think,
and I'll say this. I'll say this. Coach Pettaway, we better strike while the iron is hot. Chocolate ice cream. Chocolate ice cream is the flavor of the month right now. How long will we stay fresh? How long will we stay relevant? And if we're not able to strike at this thing like yesterday, then the longer these things play out, the more apt we are to be rolled over to the side. And folks say, yeah, well, we've done a lot for HBCUs and, we've done this, that, and the other. They'll throw that resume back out there at you, as a reason why we cannot take this further step in terms of doing the things that we're talking about right now. So, we need to get at it. Whomever we are, we need to get at it. And we need to get at it like yesterday.
Right.
And I don't know that's absolutely correct. And you got further collusion taking place. I'll say it like that. I know some people don't want to use it.
Collusion.
What was the Power 5 in regards to what's becoming the Power 4 and something ultimately going to be the Power 3 with, some of these unnamed schools that are looking to create this, I won't even say it's mega conferences that model in a lot of ways the NFL. So we're going to see a changing landscape where rules are going to support some of the things that they continue to want to do because they control the NCAA. So that's why I think it's more important for us to get a little onus in regards to how we're going to play in this marketplace that all of us are talking about.
That's an excellent point because at the end of the day, we come back to it. How are we to be relevant and financially strong, helping educate our kids? We have to be relevant 500 years from now. How do we do that? I think dialogue is great. We don't agree on everything, but just having that dialogue, because once again, I'm going to pick at Wheeler. I think I have a good idea, but I'm going to run it by Wheeler because he's going to be like, but let's look at it this way. And look at Coach Pettaway from the coaching perspective. Dr. Cavill from the perspective, from administration point of view, from a professor, a teacher professor. I think it takes all of those, dynamics to come up with a viable plan. I really do.
I certainly agree with that. I think these think tanks, in a lot of ways, really is what this is. At some point, we'll get to the point where we even put it on paper. Y'all be surprised how much of this information I go back and I journal and I turn into a published paper, white paper, if you would, of trying to see how do we put these things in paper and really look at it based on the two dynamics that are going on in a lot of ways. And even what Charles Edmond brings to the table in terms of understanding the historical factors, fandom, what that looks like. So I'm fascinated to see, because I keep telling you I want that Atlanta market. So I know a lot of folks are concerned, and I throw Clark Atlanta out there all the time. I know Morehouse, in terms of financially, they could do it, but it looks like they are fascinating where they are. And I know Wheeler is sitting up there. It's like, hey, don't come over here and messing with the SIAC. We got a good thing going on. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but see, Doc, when they start talking about tradition and history, we got to remember now the MEAC is a spinoff of the CIAA. Everybody thought that when Norfolk State, when Hampton, and A&T and all them pulled out of the CIAA, that the CIAA was going to fold. Well, in terms of basketball, they still have the largest HBCU tournament. No, not HBC. They have the largest basketball tournament in the nation. They're larger than the Power 5 tournaments. So history has shown that just because 1 or 2 leave, that's not going to be the demise of the conference.
So it won't be a problem. We solved it right here. We can do a vote and bring Clark Atlanta in tomorrow. Yeah. I don't know if the commissioners and the rest of the presidents know about it, but we just did it.
Yeah. Hey, look, hey, Doc, let's bring Clark and Morehouse in so that when you make the trip to Atlanta, you still got 2 games.
Let it be said. Yay.
I don't know. I may abstain. No, I'm not going to abstain. But I think about.
You see, Wheeler didn't vote.
Yeah. I'm a work on
smart man. That's a smart man.
But I'm gonna work on Wheeler. Me and Wheeler gonna have to get into a room, and we're just gonna have to hash it out. But with that being said, Dr. Kavir, I remember the study you were doing.
Yes, sir.
And at the time, you provided the information for them to make a decision whether you could move, stay where you're at. Now we're in 2023. CIAA, SIAC, SWAC, MEAC as a conference. What do you think is some of the things that they would have to do? And I hope it's not too broad. To keep the conferences, HBCUs moving at least forward, because we see everything around them is changing. And to say that it's not going to affect us, it is. But how do we navigate through all of this? I come back to that again.
I think the number one thing that we have to wrap our minds around is data. We have to be able to control our data and really understand the data that provides powerful information. Why do I say data analytics? Because of that, data analytics is going to tell the story in such a way, to me, which is the second biggest thing, is being able to increase and get larger amounts from our television deals. Mm-hmm. That's going to be where you really get the financial numbers to be able to do a lot of the things that you want to do, that Wheeler puts on the table, that Coach Pettaway puts on the table in terms of some of the concerns there in regards to that, is where are we going to get this increase of cash flow? And the larger institutions being able to get that cash flow from more than anywhere else that you hear this from the television revenue. And I'm not here to say that we're going to get anything close to what they get, but if we can get significantly more than what we're getting now, it can put our programs in a much more stable program. Let me say this. It was quoted on there that the SWAC and really the MEAC as well have the largest financial windfall in terms of what our conferences are giving back to the institutions compared to what I call the historically white colleges in terms of those FCS programs. We provide more in terms of cash going back to our schools at the FCS level. The other schools are able to get their income because they tend to have larger enrollments. And so they're able to operate at a higher level in regards to the operational, but it's based on enrollments, not necessarily cash flow. We were talking to some conferences out there when seriously the conversation that I was privy to, I won't get the names in there because I don't want to get anybody, to get a call tomorrow in regards to why is this information out. But I know there were certain conferences, historically white conferences, that called several institution HBCUs and talked about them moving over in the Southwest region, Southeast region, if you would. And one of the questions is, what are you paying to your member institutions? And the response is we don't pay anything. We use our money that we get from the NCAA to put in all our tournaments. So there isn't distribution at that level for a lot of the conference. And the ones that they do are much smaller in regards to what we have in the SWAC. So we do have to level set and understand that where we are compared to the other FCS in terms of the distribution money is higher than the others, but we have to find a way to grow our enrollment with the students to even take it to the next level, increase the television money when these next negotiations come up for these television deals.
Well, I can bet that the commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, when that next contract comes, my humble opinion, because I see and I hear about the complaints, but I think at the end of the day, he's going to get it done, and it's going to be much more.
I agree. Are we going to be with another network?
Now, yep, there you go. Called competition. We got about 3 minutes left. Will, that laugh bothers me, Will. Anyway, 12. I'm picking that Will. I like picking that Will. We got about 4 minutes left. Wrap up, closing comments. We'll start with Coach Pettaway. We'll go Charles, Wheeler, and Dr. Cavill.
Well, I just want to I think we just need to keep the discussion open, keep our minds open when it comes to talking about the future of HBCUs, and we just got to look at it. And I agree with Dr. Cavill. The numbers, the analytics, the data, that's what's going to drive the decision. And I just think keep the conversation open.
Charles?
All I can say is this is a great discussion. We need to keep grinding and keep going.
Wheeler.
Well, it has been a great discussion, Carlos. No ifs, ands, and buts about that. I am sitting in the parking lot of my high school right now in Baltimore, contemplating and, going through some things. You guys know I'm no longer at Fort Valley State. And so, looking to take that next step, that next challenge, whatever that may be. And, so this has given me an opportunity to kind of think back on some things and kind of get back to my roots a little bit and, kind of reflect, that sort of thing. And so, but this conversation is definitely pertinent, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And we have to be ever evolving. I mean, we got to keep thinking on this thing, and, we got to keep throwing out there, see what sticks up against the wall. We got to keep shooting it down and building it back up and, shooting it down again, that sort of thing, and make sure I's and T's are dotted and crossed, because it's big. It's big. Our kids are dependent on us. Our institutions are dependent on us. These brain trusts that are out there, they need to know, what people are thinking, that sort of thing. And so we need to be about the business of giving them the ammunition necessary for them to make an informed decision. And that's what I feel like we're doing, with our conversations, that sort of thing.
And Wheeler, it's just another opportunity. I'm waiting to hear where your next adventure is as far as athletic administration.
Thank you.
You're going to get there. Dr. Cavill?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Certainly. First, let me just say pleasure to the gentlemen. All of y'all allowing me to join this space, because I know y'all have done wonderful work, and to be a part of this is it means a lot in regards to being able to join this intellectual group here in regards to having these meaningful discussions. As everybody said, I think we need to continue to have this dialogue, put this information on the table, just so to make sure that our fans and obviously some of the administrators watch this as well. They take this information and they use it as think tank things to make sure that they are continuing to move forward. So I'll leave you with this. We need to make sure that we continue to be innovative. We need to make sure that we continue to be strategic. We need to make sure that we hold on to our history and the cultural aspects of what makes what I call a sporting HBCU diaspora what it is today.
Yeah, as I see the feedback, great discussion, and I'm just glad to be a part. I kind of feel like a student in a classroom. I may be a bit overwhelmed a little bit at first, but I stick in there, and then it gets a little bit better. I'm understanding a little bit more. That's the way I look at it. I want to thank Roy for producing today's show, Charles, Coach Pettaway, Dr. Cavill, Wheeler Brown, and everyone in the chat room with the discussion. Keep it going as always. And I always say this, a lot of times the solution to a problem is multifaceted. And to solve the problem, it has to be multifaceted, not just one course to determine it. But we have bright people and bright minds in this HBCU realm. And I just love it. I just love the discussion. And if I can learn from Charles, Coach Pettaway, Dr. Cavill, Wheeler, that's right, Wheeler, we're going to have a discussion. I can learn from them. Hey, I love it. And then when you learn something, you share it with others. And that's how it goes. I won't ask you guys for a football prediction, but I will say this. Football season is here. It's going to be exciting. Let the games begin. When the bright lights come on, some shine. Some before the game, they don't shine. But when those lights come on, they shine. Until next Saturday at 11 a.m. for another edition. Charles, don't
Carlos,
start
so you close it out. Pettaway, I'll be there for homecoming. I want some of your fried fish.
I got you. I got you, Doc. I got you, brother. I got you.
All right, then, Carlos, go ahead.
Is it fresh fish that he
exactly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, I can't fight against that. That's
I got you, Doc.
precious. Also, want to thank the Blue and Gold Centric Club, proud sponsor of the Coles Brown Show. Also, the announcement with JBN, exclusive content. If you become a member, you'll have privy to that exclusive content. All the shows inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the ONG Strike Zone, all across Black College Sports Wrap, all of them. They do a great job. Help support.
The off-camera stuff is even better than what you see on camera.
Oh, well, boy, if the off-camera stuff was on camera, the stories we could tell. Now, Charles, until next Saturday at 11 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, right here on the Black College Sports Network. Until next time, peace and God bless.